Testing 1 2 1 2 test. Perfect.
Ya lai 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 la lai. Ya lai la lai 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 lai. Ya lai la lai 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 la lai. Ya lai la lai 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 lai. Try with me. Ya lai la lai 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 la lai. Ya lai la lai 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 lai. Ya lai 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 la lai. Ya lai la lai 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 lai. Ya lai 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 la lai. Ya lai 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 la la lai. Ya lai 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 la lai. Ya lai la lai 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 la lai. Ya lai 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 la lai. Ya lai la lai lai la la lai. Ya lai la lai 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 la lai. Ya lai la 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 lai. Ya lai la lai 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 la lai. Ya lai 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 la 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 lai. Ya lai 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 la lai. Ya lai la 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 lai. Ya lai la lai 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 la lai. Ya lai la 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 lai. Ya lai la lai 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 la lai. Ya lai la 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 lai. Ya lai la lai 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 la lai. Ya lai la lai 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 la 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 lai. Ya lai la lai 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 la lai. Ya lai la lai 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 lai.
Thank you, Sylvia, Rhoda, and Jerry, the three musketeers, who come together every week to services. They are known as the three musketeers. Great job. Shabbat shalom, everyone. Good to see all of you this evening. I hope you've had a nice week, a good Hanukkah, and a little bit of relaxation this week, maybe. Yeah. Yes. Raise your hand if you got to relax a little bit this week. Okay. All right. That's good. Well, happy early 2023 to everybody. I'm so glad you're here this evening. We're going to begin. It sounds really good. That's our new sound system. Does it sound pretty good? I think it does. I think it sounds pretty good. Let's begin on page 10. Hine matovu manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matovu manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. Page 12, Psalm 95. לכו נרננה, יאי לי 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 לי, נא לאדוני, יאי לי 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 לי, נהריה, יאי לי 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 לי, לצור אישנו, yai, lie, 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 lie. Let us sing out to God, the maker of all, sure and strong. Let all of creation from mountain to sea hear our song. Lechu neranena, ya lai 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 lai, l'Adonai, ya lai 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 lai, Nahariya, ya lai 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 lai, Letzur Yishenu, ya lai 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 lai. For all of the wonder and all of God's light, we rejoice. So now let us listen with all of our hearts to hear God's voice. Lechu neranena, ya lai 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 lai, l'Adonai, ya lai 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 lai, Nahariya, ya lai 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 lai, Letzur Yishenu, ya lai 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 lai, ya lai 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 lai. Page 20. Lecha dodi likrat kala yalalai 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 pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala yalalai 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 pnei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor vezachor bedibur echad. Shmianu el hameyuchad, Adonai echad, u'shemo echad, l'shemul tiferet, ve'elitila. Lecha dodi likrat kala, yalalai, 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 b'nei Shabbat, nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, yalalai, 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 b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, ki mekor habracha, merosh mikedem nesucha. Sof ma'aseh b'machshava techila. Lecha dodi likrat kala, yalalai, 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 b'nei Shabbat kabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, yalalai, 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 b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Hitoreri, hitoreri,
Kiva orech kumi ori, uri, shir daberi, kivod Adonai, Allahich nigla, lecha dodi likrat kala, yalalai, k'nei Shabbat, nekabela, lecha dodi likrat kala, yalalai, k'nei Shabbat, nekabela. If you'd like to rise to greet the Shabbat bride, please do so. Verse 9, Boi v'shalom ateret bala gam besimcha uvetzola toch emune am segula Boi chala lecha dodi likrat kala yalalai b'nei Shabbat nekabela lecha dodi likrat kala yalalai b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Page 24. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem leshalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu ni leshalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Tzeitchem leshalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Page 29. Let's read together at the bottom. O God, you are as near as the very air we breathe, yet farther than the farthermost star. We yearn to reach you. We seek the light and warmth of your presence. Though we say you are near, we are lonely and alone. Oh, let our desire be so strong that it will tear the veil that keeps you from our sight. Let your light release our darkness and reveal the glory and joy of your presence. Please rise. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Leolam Vaed. Page 30, together. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tsevaot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on evening. Uma'avir yom u'mevihi laila, umavdil ben yom uvein laila, Adonai Tsevaot shemo, El Chai v'kayam tamid yimloch aleinu le'olam va'ed. Baruch ata Adonai Hama'ariv Aravim. Page 32. Ahavat olam Beit Yisrael Amcha ahavta Torah u'mitzvot Chukim u'mishpatim Otanu limadata Al ken Adonai Eloheinu B'shochbeinu uvkumeinu Nasiach b'chukecha V'nismach b'divrei Toratecha Uv'mitzvotecha Leolam va'ed Ki heim chayenu ve'orech yameinu ve'orech yameinu Uvahem nege yomam valayla yomam valayla Ve'ahavatecha al tasir mimenu le'olamim Baruch ata Adonai Ohev amo Yisrael. Page 34. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. Please be seated. Page 36. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'odecha ve'hayu advarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha uv'lechtecha v'derech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha ukshartam leot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot beinenecha uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha leman tizkeru va'asitem et kol mitzvotai vihitem kadoshim lelohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim lihiot lachem lelohim ani Adonai Elohechem Adonai Elohechem emet. On 37 together. Love your God with every heartbeat, with every breath, with every conscious act. Keep in mind the words I command you today. Teach them to your children. Talk about them at work, whether you are tired or you are rested. Let them guide the work of your hands. Keep them in the forefront of your vision. Do not leave them at the doorway of your house or outside your gate. They are reminders to do all of my mitzvot, so that you can be holy for God. I am Adonai your God. I led you out of Egypt to become your God. I am Adonai your God. Page 40. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh, norati hilot oseh Beth-El, Malachutecha ra'u vanecha, Bokei hayam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam, Ze'elianu ve'amiru, Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed, Ve'ne'emar kifada Adonai et Yaakov, Uge'alo miyad chazak mimenu, Baruch ata Adonai, Gal Yisrael. Page 43, at the top together. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will. Baruch ata Adonai, hapores sukat shalom aleinu, ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim. On 44. The people of Israel shall keep Shabbat, observing Shabbat throughout the ages as a covenant for all time. It is a sign for all time between me and the people of Israel. For in 6 days Adonai made heaven and earth, and on the seventh day God ceased from work and was refreshed. V'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. V'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat La'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Beini uvein bnei Yisrael oti leolam, oti leolam. V'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat La'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et ha-shamayim ve'et ha'aretz v'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Uvayom hashvi'i shavat vayinafash, shavat vayinafash, shavat vayinafash. V'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Page 47. In the middle, let's read together. Prayer invites God's presence to suffuse our spirits, God's will to prevail in our lives. Prayer may not bring water to parched fields, nor mend a broken bridge, nor rebuild a ruined city. But prayer can water an arid soul, mend a broken heart, rebuild a weakened will. Please rise. Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch ata Adonai, Eloheinu, v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, v'Konei HaKol, v'Zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot, Umevi Geula Livnei V'Nehem, למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן. ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיה הכל אתה רב להושיע. משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיה הכל ברחמים רבים. סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומידו מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה. ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיה הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש. We continue in silent prayer. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki ata hu melech adon lechol hashalom. Ki ata hu melech adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. V'tov be'einecha levarech et amcha Yisrael bechol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. On 61 together. Grant us peace, your most precious gift, O eternal source of peace, and give us the will to proclaim its message to all the peoples of the earth.
Bless our country as a safeguard of peace, its advocate among the nations. May contentment reign within our borders, health and happiness within our homes. Strengthen the bonds of friendship and fellowship among all the inhabitants of every land. Plant virtue in every soul, and may the love of your name hallow every home and every heart. Praised are you, Eternal One, who blesses our people with peace. Baruch ata Adonai, hamivarech et amo Yisrael, b'shalom. We pray now for our loved ones, our family members, our friends, members of our community who are ill and struggling and in need of God's healing and strength and peace. If you're praying for someone this evening and you'd like to share their name, I invite you to do so as my eyes meet yours. Thank you, Roberta. Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Elaine. Thank you, Arlene. Thank you, Claire. Thank you. Thanks, Michael. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you. Thank you. May God be with all of them and bring them a speedy renewal of body and spirit. Page 253. Mi shebeirach avotenu mikor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mi shebeirach imotenu mikor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. All right, close your books, everybody. Shabbat Shalom. A few weeks ago in our Shabbat morning Torah study class, when we were discussing the spiritual meaning of Jacob's dream with the ladder, one of our participants courageously spoke up to say that she was feeling agitated by our discussion. I had hoped that today we would talk about the women in the story, is what she said, rightly pointing out that the parasha we were studying that day includes a whole chapter about a very difficult story, the rape of Jacob's daughter Dinah. She expressed deep frustration that despite this very disturbing story about the treatment of women in our own ancient Jewish culture, here we were again, talking about Jacob's tired old dream, probably for the upteen-thousandth time. My response to her was inadequate. Well, maybe we can study that story next year, I said. My intention was to keep the discussion on track with what I'd prepared, of course, but I realize now that my answer was dismissive and insensitive to the feelings she was expressing, and to the frustration and disrespect many women, and men too, feel because of the inarguable fact that women's voices and stories are marginalized in the Torah and quite frequently overlooked in the study of our tradition. Although I have studied feminist theory and heard my female rabbinic colleagues talk about this phenomenon for years, it never really hit home the way it did as I reflected on what our congregants said in Torah study that day. I found myself thinking about what she had said in the days that followed, too. I was in bed with the flu, and maybe because her comments were on my mind, I decided to binge watch the first couple seasons of The Handmaid's Tale. I'm guessing many of you have seen it, or you know the story, but in case you haven't, or you don't know anything about it, The Handmaid's Tale is a dystopian story by the novelist Margaret Atwood, set right here in America in the not-too-distant future. A fundamentalist Christian sect has led a revolution overthrowing the U.S. government and established a theocratic state in its place called the Republic of Gilead. Gilead's laws are based on a radical and very literal interpretation of the Bible. The main plot line is based on a passage from Genesis, ironically, in the same parasha we were studying that morning when our congregant asked why we weren't talking about the women in the story. In that passage, Jacob's wife, Rachel, is unable to have children. So she tells Jacob, her husband, quote, "Here is my handmaid, Bilhah. Cohabit with her, that she may bear on my knees, and that through her I may have children." Based on this biblical verse, many of the fertile women in Gilead are enslaved and used as incubators to bear children for powerful elite couples who aren't able to conceive on their own. The handmaids in the story live as slaves in the home of the family they're assigned to. And once a month, they have to participate in something called the ceremony, which is a perverse reenactment of Rachel's instructions to Jacob. The handmaid lies on her back with her head literally on the knees of her mistress, while the man of the house, having just read the biblical passage aloud as a kind of sick ritual sanction for what is about to happen, attempts to impregnate her. If she does become pregnant, she carries the child to term, and then she's obligated to turn the child over to the elite mistress, who will raise the child as her own. The handmaid is then removed from the house and reassigned to another family, where she'll be forced to go through all of this again as their slave surrogate. The main character of the story is a handmaid who is called by the name Offred. This isn't her real name, but in Gilead, the handmaids are denied all individual identity and human dignity. She's called Offred because she belongs to a powerful government official named Fred. She is of Fred. That's her name, Offred. Other handmaids are similarly called Off Glenn, Off Warren, Off Daniel. These nameless women bear children for these families and for the Gilead nation, but they are quite literally erased from the history of both. It's a grim and terrifying picture of the extremes to which a patriarchal state could go. Though it's imagined by Margaret Atwood, many of Gilead's horrors have been realized in the real world. For example, in the fundamentalist Islamic Republic of Iran, and Taliban-ruled Afghanistan. It really makes you think, if it could happen in those places, could it happen here too? In any case, The Handmaid's Tale is a poignant and highly effective modern midrash on the Bible. Probably the most powerful I've ever seen, because it really makes you think about how passages that we tend to casually gloss over and rarely read or ignore altogether actually reflect a vile and deeply disturbing suppression and objectification of women in our sacred texts. And because the Hebrew Bible has played such a central role in shaping Western culture, the ways we structure our societies and our families, the ways we think and talk about gender roles and capabilities, even if subconsciously, the ideas and principles we hold sacred, and the spiritual vocabulary we use in prayer and the sanctification of life. Because of all of this, we should seriously ask, to what extent have we internalized the misogyny of the Bible? And what will it take to overcome it? In this week's parasha, Vayigash, we find another mention of Rachel's handmaid, Bilhah, and Leah's handmaid, Zilpah, who also bore children for Jacob. It's buried in one of those long genealogies we tend to skip over. Bilhah is identified as the mother of two of Jacob's sons, Dan and Naphtali. And Zilpah is listed as the mother of Gad and Asher, meaning that 4 of the 12 tribes of Israel, fully 1/3 of them, are descended from these women who were enslaved as handmaids. To borrow from The Handmaid's Tale, we might say that we are of them too. This fact does not go unnoticed by the sages, who state in Midrash that, quote, 6 are the matriarchs, and they are Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, Leah, Bilhah, and Zilpah. As you hear that litany, you might have a sense of where I'm going with this. Think about the Amidah prayer in our book. The ancient rabbis who wrote it chose to describe God as the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, period. It seems not to have occurred to them to include the matriarchs, even though, as the Midrash indicates, they clearly saw these 6 women as the mothers of the Jewish people. Perhaps their omission can be chalked up to typical rabbinic patriarchy. When it came to the covenant with God, they just didn't see the women as being on the same level as the men. So Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, Leah, and their handmaids, Bilhah and Zilpah, are all given the same treatment liturgically. They're all excluded. But what about us in Reform Judaism? For the last 30 years or more, we have included Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah in our Amidah in the name of gender egalitarianism and to affirm the equally important role of the matriarchs in the Jewish story. But after watching The Handmaid's Tale, it seems to me that this effort may yet be incomplete. That is to say, why don't we include Bilhah and Zilpah in the list of imahot, the matriarchs of the Jewish people? Should we? This question was asked of the CCAR Responsa Committee, the Reform Rabbinate's Halachic Advisory Group, 20 years ago, as Mishkan Tefillah was being finalized and before its publication. The committee replied as follows: we single out the names Sarah, Rebecca, Leah, and Rachel because each of them plays a pivotal role in the biblical narrative, in their relationship to their families, husbands, and children, and in their influence upon the events that shape the course of Israelite history. Each of these four women, in other words, appears to us as a personality in her own right, not simply as the wife of a patriarch. The tradition, in fact, regards them as prophets, recipients of divine revelation. This suggests that it is possible to view Sarah, Rebekah, Leah, and Rachel as partners with their husbands in the establishment of the covenant. By contrast, the responsum goes on, none of these characteristics apply to Bilhah and Zilpah, who simply do not occupy such an exalted position in the biblical narrative and in the religious memory of the Jewish people. End quote. In other words, it seems that matriarch, as our movement understood it, at that time anyway, is not a biological category, but rather a formative one. The implication being that while Bilhah and Zilpah may have given birth to four of Jacob's sons, it was Rachel and Leah who actually formed them as human beings and shaped their Jewish identity. It's a reasonable explanation as far as it goes. But I think The Handmaid's Tale might argue for a reconsideration, because the same argument could be made regarding the role of the handmaids in the mythical Gilead. True, the handmaids only gave birth to the children of the elite. They didn't raise them or participate at all in the forming of their character or personality or identity as human beings. But that's not because they didn't want to. It's only because they were forbidden by the twisted and oppressive law of the state to have anything to do with the children they bore. Under that law, the handmaids were treated exclusively as walking incubators to be impregnated by the elite, utilized for their reproductive capacity, and then discarded. They were not accorded any human dignity or rights beyond their pure biological function. Was it the same in Jacob's time? The text gives us reason to think that it very well may have been. If so, what should we make of our contemporary liturgical choice to exclude Bilhah and Zilpah from the matriarchs on the grounds that they didn't participate fully with the men and their official wives in nurturing the covenantal community? Are we unwittingly validating and sanctifying a social structure that enslaved certain women, allowed them to be used as child bearers for the elite class, and then forcibly severed their relationship with the children they carried? Clearly, when we put it that way, none of us would want to say, yes, that's what we believe. But that begs the question, do we want to change our liturgical practice? Meaning, change the words of the prayer. Naturally, we are very attached to the words we say in prayer. There's a certain comfort in familiarity. And our friends in Orthodoxy and in some conservative communities don't include the matriarchs at all, so adding Bilhah and Zilpah would separate us even further from them. Maybe that's a good thing, or maybe not. And maybe I'm just overstating all this because I was creeped out by The Handmaid's Tale. But then again, I think that's precisely the point of good fiction, and indeed of religion at its best, which is to make us uncomfortable, to challenge our basic assumptions, and make us want to rethink them. Shabbat Shalom. We'll continue on page 282. I invite you to please rise.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol,
לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד. Please be seated. We remember our loved ones now whom death has taken from this world. If you're comfortable and able to do so, I invite you to rise as you hear the name of your loved one read. On this Shabbat, we are in Shloshim, the first 30 days of mourning, for Stephen J. Cobley, Shirley Landsberg, Stuart London, and Daniel Motion. And we recall the yahrzeits of Samuel Abrams, Kurt Bauer, Bertram D. Plain, Jack Plotsky, Mitchell Rosenson, Morris Shapiro, Martin Silver, Harry Smolowitz, Chelsea Stone, Ray Stone, Morris Strackman, Rose Strackman, Arthur Susswine, Jerry Tillis, Bess Weiner, Harrison Spencer Weiss Horowitz, and Edna Zale. If you're remembering someone whose name was not read this evening and you'd like to share it with us, I invite you to do so now as my eyes meet yours. Thank you, Shelley. Thank you. Thanks, Martha. Thank you, Elaine. Zichronam livracha, may their memories be for a blessing. If it's your custom to rise for the mourner's Kaddish, I invite you to do so now. If you prefer to remain seated, you may do so. We are on page 294. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemeh rabah, be'alma divra chiruteh v'yamlich malchuteh, v'chayechon uvyomechon, uvchaye dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman kariv ve'imru amen. Yehe shmei rabba mevorach le'alam ulalmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yitalal shmei dekudesha barichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tush b'chata v'nechemata. Da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehe shlama rabba min shmaya. V'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the one who makes harmony on high bring peace to us, to all Israel, and to all the world. May their memories be for a blessing. We say together, amen. Please be seated. Please be seated. Good. Thank you. All right. So I want to say Shabbat Shalom to everybody, and thank you to, first of all, to Phil, our glorious usher who greets everybody so kindly and warmly. Make sure we all have our books when we come in. Phil, you set the tone for a warm and friendly service, and I appreciate what you do. Thank you also to the Margaloff family for baking our challah. Thank you to Jason, who's here running our technology, managing our Zoom and our new sound system. Hopefully the new sound system sounds good and that you can hear nicely and that the people online are also able to hear and see nicely. I want to say thank you to Joy P., who is here. You saw the email. It was in the email, right? Mention of Joy's promotion to Joy. Tell us what is your title? Director of Operations and Member Liaison. So Joy plays a really important role here in making sure that everything happens properly as it's supposed to. And she's here on Friday nights at services so that if you have any kind of need as a member of the congregation, any questions or anything, you can always talk to Joy P. She's here to help and to answer questions and to make sure that you get what you need. So Joy, thank you for all that you do and for being here. And speaking of Joy P., she has asked me to mention that if you like to bake and you haven't yet baked for our own egg, or Joy doesn't know about your skills, be sure to go up and tell her so that you can get involved in baking. It's a beautiful way to contribute to the community. I want to say thank you to our own egg bakers who baked this week. And if you're here, when I call your name, please rise so we can applaud you. Linda Diamond, Sharon Freeman, Ellen Safian, Ina Pakhtar, Roberta Lulov. All right, so we're excited to taste all of your goodies when we go down for the own egg. Thank you for baking. And in a couple weeks, just a reminder, on Friday, January 13th, so not next Friday, but the Friday after, we have a very special guest. The Attorney General of New York, Letitia James, will be here to speak in celebration of our annual Martin Luther King service, and Cantor is working with a choir to bring beautiful music. This is a real honor to have the Attorney General here. It's a big deal, so please do come and spread the word. Everybody's invited. And with that, I'd like to invite Jerry to come on up and lead us in the Kiddush. And would you all please rise?